Welcome back at JakajimaTV. Today we're going to talk about unmanned cargo aircraft, and we're doing this with Sara de la Rosa. She has been in the industry for over 8 years now, and she has quite some experience, particularly in the medical delivery field with drones. So welcome, Sara, and JakajimaTV. Maybe you can start with a brief introduction, who you are, what you've done, etc., and your experience in this cargo field.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much, Peter, for inviting me. So I think the last 2.5, 3 years have been basically the highlight of entering the cargo, specifically the cargo industry in the unmanned sector. It's still an evolving industry, and it's very exciting to see how new opportunities are opening up, especially in logistics, supply chain. So my background, I spent 2 years with UNICEF. That's where I started off helping the international development sector to incorporate this technology in support of response and supply chain activities. And now I'm joining a small company in Geneva, which is acting as a platform for bringing together expertise called Outsight International. Yeah. And the objective is really to bring closer the industry. Now there are a lot of manufacturers out there performing or building different types of aircraft for specific operations. Yeah. And we want to help bring together the industry to those experts in the healthcare sector, the logistics, and facilitate the processes to incorporate the technology.
Okay. Yeah. So you made a slide. We're going to share it now. 1 second. There it is. Each view. So the unmanned cargo. Now you mentioned the different, let's say, sizes and the different type of aircraft. So maybe you can because when we look at the medical delivery, so far it has been temperature controlled, let's say maximum 5 kilograms or something. So what do you see for trends here? And also you applying the different technologies, hybrid, VTOL, fixed wing, helicopters, etc., etc.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's multiple trends in the industry, and they're starting to converge, but they're also complementing each other. So I think in the hybrid VTOL, so vertical takeoff capabilities are essential for delivering goods in remote locations. There are ways of dropping it from the air or also landing, so you can have a two-way transport system. And there are a number of companies developing such capabilities, and increasingly also automating the options to have the systems either in a drone in a box concept or autonomously picking up the cargo. Okay. So in the healthcare sector, you don't need huge amounts of cargo usually for that last to middle mile logistics to service, healthcare centers, hospitals, laboratories. But on the parallel side, you've got increasing need also of considering heavier cargo loads to expand existing networks and operations. And that's where I think the heavy lift aircraft industry could make a huge difference.
But we've seen that particularly in Africa, there have a lot of projects going on, and even I think there are some regular services nowadays, but that requires also a different logistic approach, and let's say also requires disruptive sort of business models. Is that true, or?
Yeah, so I don't know if they're so disruptive, because the air cargo and supply chain sector, so the freight forwarders, they already have very solid business models that have been around for decades, and now it's more a matter of seeing how can the unmanned systems fit into those existing models. So there's a few ways of doing that, either by selling a batch of aircraft and providing a transfer of operations to an operating company. And that's increasingly, there are more strategic partnerships developing in that front, whereby logistics or freight forwarders are jumping into the space and trying to incorporate these new services to extend their operations. And then you have also the classic aviation leasing model, wet or dry lease with pilots without, where you can have a long-term engagement. The customer doesn't need to buy the aircraft necessarily, but they buy the capability of using those aircraft and perhaps sharing one specific aircraft across different customers.
Okay. So and then the whole regulation stuff is important. I mean, in Africa, maybe the regulation is more flexible than in heavy crowded areas like in Europe or the United States or even in Asia. So what is the situation there?
Well, it's been evolving a lot. I mean, the last, I would say 5 years have been crucial in establishing some of the processes. Europe has been unifying or merging into establishing new regulations for unmanned aircraft. Of course, the US has been doing a lot of effort. So, and Africa is, and there are a number of countries that have now gained enough experience to adopt these systems. I think the next level is really to establish training capabilities, especially now with COVID. You may see some companies cannot just have their assets distributed across geography so easily. So establishing local capabilities of adopting or finding the right partners in country to operate the systems is going to be a crucial aspect, I think, moving forward.
Yeah. Okay. So and if you go from medical, from small size to large size, that means, I mean, that also the distance will be much more important. I mean, small sizes is maybe 5 to 10 kilometers.
Yes, depending. I mean, it's line of sight really, or radio line of sight, right? So up to 150 or almost 200 kilometers, it's possible to have an operation. Increasingly there are more satellite. I mean, there are enough technologies with satellite supported for satellite systems.
Oh, satellite communication with
yes. Yeah. So, and larger aircraft don't have such limitations. They can have a transponder. They can operate beyond visual line of sight without having the need to.
So lots of opportunities there, I guess.
Yes, I mean, if we think about normal aircraft, they're almost operating already autonomously. It's really the takeoff and the landing that involves the pilot currently. So in the scenarios where heavy lift cargo is needed more and more, I think is in those island nations, in remote locations that have maybe conflicts ongoing, where you don't want to necessarily put at risk a pilot. That's where cargo could make, or unmanned cargo can make a big difference.
A good start, yeah. And in the end, probably also will replace manned cargo, I mean, larger aircrafts, or is that wishful thinking?
I'm not sure if that's necessary. I mean, they both can coexist, really. It depends on the scenario, where you're landing, where you're delivering. If you don't have the personnel on land, if you have a limited capacity, then that's where unmanned systems with autonomous capabilities can alleviate and also deliver.
Okay, well, I think you've given us good insight in a very in a short period. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
As always, I ask at the end of an interview or talk a personal question. We want to know a bit about the person behind the professional. So what's your favorite music or art or food or city? So
yeah, so as an artist, I definitely have to mention Salvador Dali is one of my favorite painters.
Okay, yeah,
yes,
yeah.
Because it's evocative and awakening, and basically combines all types of emotions that we have: dreams, passion, fear, joy. And I think we're now living in a historical moment where we have to get closer to those emotions and follow, stick together to follow our dreams. And on a personal level, I'm quite fascinated with beekeeping. So as a country, I grew quite close to Slovenia. I spent 2 years in Slovenia and in the beekeeping sector.
Yes.
And personally find it quite exciting to see how the dynamics of bees kind of merge into what we're seeing in the increasing drone industry, basically taking off in different directions, where you have this dynamic interaction, and the behavior of these actually is quite relatable to how unmanned aircraft can.
Okay, so very small cargo drones.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for sharing this as well, and also sharing your knowledge about unmanned cargo systems.
Yeah, I think overall there's a big convergence going on in the industry, cargo and passenger airlift. So on the long term, these two sectors could coexist also for offering mobility as a whole, not just for cargo.
Okay. Well, thank you very much, and look forward to talk to you soon again.
Thank you so much, Peter.
Thank you.